Alright, what's going on guys? It's Almond. Welcome back to another Wizard101 video. In today's video, I wanted to show you guys a setup that I've been working on, and it's quite interesting if I do say so myself. And it's using life stats. Well, I'm initially a life school, but I'm using fire stats on a life, which is kind of weird to say, but I decided to make a build for some PvE players if they wanted to change some stuff around and not just be a life, because you look at some life spells and compare them against, fire spells, and look at the damage numbers and stuff like that, you can do pretty well on a life with fire stats. And granted, you might need some certain things, but overall, like, if I had to quest this character as is, I would quest it with the fire stats, and that's just me being honest, right? But let's talk about that build and my overall thoughts about it. So if you do enjoy this type of content, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that type of stuff, and let's actually get into today's content. So when it comes to my life, right, and even though he has his eyes closed for some reason right now, but if we quickly go over to my stats, I have 216 damage on a life, and my HP is 11k, and I can definitely go higher than this because I don't have the min-max jewels, of course, on this setup, but you can definitely go higher, and it's pretty nice. Like, even the resist overall, and I have some good accuracy. Like, if we go to my spells, and for example, if we put in, like, I don't know, like a meteor, I only need 25 accuracy, of course. Like, certain spells you might need a little bit more, like, of course, if I was doing PvP or like just advanced combat things, right? Obviously I'll lower my stats in favor of more other stats like resist and stuff like that, but you could still power these spells if you wanted to. And if I wanted to go learn dragon, I can go use dragon in PvE, because you can actually train that in the vendor and arcanum. Of course, you have to be level 100, but I can still do it and just enchant meteor as like most players do, right? And granted, this is like I said, this requires a lot of setup to do it, but hey, for some reason someone wanted to do this, I'd recommend it. Now you can see that I have 216 damage, 42 res overall. I could definitely go higher resist, but it's mainly the main part of this is just the damage portion. Accuracy is pretty good as well. Crit is a little bit lacking, but we'll talk about that as well. Block pretty high, if I do say so myself, and 45 pierce with some decent outgoing stats and incoming stats. Right, I know incoming is banned in advanced combat and above, like PvP, but regular PvE in and outgoing just still works. Then we have just pip conserve, doesn't really matter, but I do have 100% pips as well, and some decent arch mastery, which, I mean, hey, if you want to compete against other enemies for their arch mastery rating, this works. Now let's talk about the gear. I do use the eternal hat. You can use like burrower, you can even use the nullity set, or not really the nullity set, you can use the void set, anything that gives like two shield or two sword pins. Using that gives you access to the 19 damage pins that also have 3 pierce, and you can just socket those on, right? Anything that has 2 swords. I preferably went for a gear piece that had a shield pin, just so I can get extra resist. You do not have to put the outgoing, that is just personal preference, but like I said, I would switch this to maybe like more resist to a certain school, for example, right? But you can use void if you want the extra accuracy, because if you don't have this amulet, it's always good to just switch it up and use something else. For example, just having void to socket on the power pin, that is also viable. You can use other stuff like Skyfarer and stuff like that, but I feel like the eternal one was just best in slot for me personally, right? Now let's go over to the robe. I do have Nightmare robe on. This is farmable, of course. If you have the gauntlet, you could switch this to Aeon. Aeon is a good representation of it as well, but I felt like Nightmare was a little bit better, because if you look at the resist, you get 1 extra resist, you get more block, you get more pips, and you get more health, right? And we're not going to be using the life stats on this build, so that's why I didn't care about the pierce, the accuracy, or the damage, because of the fact that we're just using the other stats so we can socket on the pins that we want, of course. Then we move over to the boots. Aeon, I don't think you can really switch it out, Aeon, at the moment, to anything else. I could be wrong, but like, you could use Skyfarer boots, of course, but just if we're looking at stats overall, right? Aeon boots are just better. They have more HP, right? I mean, sure, you're losing 1% pips, but it doesn't matter in our case. And you don't get blocked, right? You do lose 1 resist, but I'm losing 1 resist in favor for like almost 400 HP, which I feel like that's pretty good for what we're trying to accomplish. Then you go to the wand. I have the headmaster wand. This wand is so good. Honestly, I don't know if they'll ever go back and do something similar to this, but if we're comparing this to, for example, like the Aeon sword, the damage in Pierce isn't there, right? It's just not there, right? And I just prefer the amount of damage and Pierce you get on this. It's just so good, right? And you get a Maycast Scald, you know? Who knows, man? You guys might get a Maycast Scald into an Incendiate if you wanted to, right? And that's another thing that's possible. But overall, this one is so good, and even the card that comes with it, the Mass Fire Trap, just so much value hidden behind this one. I don't know if they'll ever make this a way of getting like a play option, but there is technically the events that you can do, which I know a lot of people do argue, like a farmable source that I was talking about. There is none at the moment. So the only way to get this is either from packs or certain events that do come back from the events tab. Now we go to the Athame. I felt like Aeon was like the best in slot. I know some people use like other Athames, but just the damage on here is really good, and the health is pretty good too, right? Then we move over to the amulet. The amulet is kind of interchangeable, right? You could use this amulet, right? Well, you need it for the fire mastery, of course, but if we're comparing it to the other fire masteries, the exalted one gives 3% damage. This one gives 4. Granted, you don't need the accuracy from here, but just having the extra damage, why not, right? Why not? You can socket on any 2 flat res jewels that you want to for the sockets, if that's something up your alley. Some people even put block, right? But I just feel like the flat res is just more important. The ring, I'm actually not using Aeon ring. Aeon ring gives 1 less damage, right? So in favor of 1 extra damage, I am using, I believe this is the Aphrodite ring. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's the Aphrodite ring. And just having that 1 extra damage is so much value for me, at least, right? Because look, if you're looking at my HP, I'm already at 11k. Do I really need more HP and in favor of losing 1 damage? Not really. So for that reasoning, we're using Aphrodite ring for the extra 1% damage. And then with pet is going to be an all damage pet. Of course, I have the time to make another all damage pet for specifically for my life. And we'll have the mount for the set bonus, of course. If you have the set bonus, you get 8 extra damage on top of that. It's literally equivalent to a giver talent stacked up on top of this. And then the deck, you can literally use any deck. I was using this deck at one point, and just because I wanted to socket on the bubble, right? You can literally use any triangle deck that gives you a bubble. I just did the nullity one just because I felt like it gave the most HP. Like, for example, if we're comparing it to the Aeon deck, it gives less HP than the Aeon one. Or the Aeon one gives less HP than the nullity one. And even if I socketed on anything, it wouldn't have mattered. And the nullity one, it gives me more HP, and it's actually giving me more arch mastery. So yeah, why not? And I can socket on more HP just for the more HP stacked up on more. But like I said, you can even use any deck and just socket on anything. You can socket on a blade, a bubble, like a 35 bubble is always good to have, right? Because yes, you can train, I believe, yeah, you can train the wildfire, but if you wanted to have a 35 bubble, that's not a bad socket at all. A fire blade is always good as well if you want to blade and then, you know, do a mass trap and then just meteor, right? You got a couple options. And if you obviously you can't train fire blade, of course, but just having that socket of a blade talent, or not blade talent, a blade jewel is just perfect. It's perfect. But I just went the HP route instead. But that's overall the setup. I felt like this was quite a unique setup. I haven't seen many people talk about dual schooling setups, and the closest one that I wanted to do was this because I felt like the damage is so good. But there is one thing that I wanted to include, and I don't want to talk about it for the actual setup because this is, you know, this requires like certain things, like not too much. Like this is all like you can get Eternal, you know, you can get Mire, you can go farm this Aeon, you can go farm Headmaster. I know it's a bit niche, you can't really farm it, so I guess my argument is kind of flawed. But the Thame, Ring, Amulet, Pet you can just make, and the amount is kind of a, you know, pay to win thing. But there is a deck that you can use to increase your damage even more. But sadly, I don't have the higher version of these, and it's the decathlete decks. If you have these on, right, of course I could sock it on more pips. If I had the higher tier versions, this would even be better. But now if you look at my damage, I can have 220 damage on a life. Issue being is I don't have any deck space. Now you can circumvent this because the fact that you have an Ice Decathlete deck, if you had the max tier version, it would give you a tier socket, and you would also have a triangle socket. So you can use that triangle socket to socket on a blade. You'll have a blade in your side deck, or yeah, you would have a blade on your side, on your cards, right? And then you have a mass trap, and then the only thing you really need to carry is TC Scald. And if you have TC Scald, you can literally do Scald Incendiate stuff if you wanted to with max damage. Why not, right? Because technically I have 223, but I am able to have 220. So just an interesting thing I wanted to point out, but I didn't want to like use this in the setup because of the fact that I'm kind of limited. I'm not really using, I'm gonna have to use TC, which is kind of annoying to get every time. But if that's not really an issue, then sure, you just get a Decathlete deck and you're fine, right? But I wanted to do something where I can just have meteors in my deck and then just have enchants, and I'm good to go. And I can, if I had Frenzy, of course I don't have it trained at the moment because buyback is going on right now, so I'm like testing out stuff. But I would just have a Blade, a Frenzy, and a Meteor, and I'm good. Or if I have a Dragon trained, of course, because like I said, I did reset my points, I would just Blade or a Dragon, and I'm good, right? And I'm literally on a life. I have more health and resist than my actual other character, and I have 1% extra more damage. Granted, you know, if I do use like the amulet that gives me 2% extra damage on fire, I can actually have more damage than this life setup by 1% extra. But you know, that's excluding Decathlete deck and stuff like that. So that's why I don't want to include Decathlete deck too much in my videos, because of that reason. So if we're just talking about raw setup, 216, pretty good. I don't know if you can go higher. I've definitely asked some people around, and you know, look at some gear. I know you can get close with other setups, but I did want to use the pin system and incorporate that in this video as well to show off that pins are actually quite valuable if you think about it. And they're used in the raid as well, especially for the Azteca raid. A lot of people are using dual school setups, and this might be the first of many videos to come down the line of all these dual schooling setups. But if you ever wanted to do PvE, Lire as people call it, there it is, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed something interesting, something new to the channel when it comes to the gear setups, and slowly start introducing more dual school setups down the line with all the variety that we're going to be having in the near future, especially with Wallaroo coming around the corner. I can expect some more templates, more gear setup videos. Definitely going to see a lot of variety in the community, which is good to see, right? But definitely I'm going to be posting the min-max damage setups first more than anything, just because I know a lot of people like doing that stuff. And yeah, so that is it from me, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that type of stuff, and be on the lookout for more content. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.